December 27, 1943. Near Hill 730 in San Pietro, Italy, a German soldier from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division made a final entry in his diary, words that were discovered on his body 3 days later by advancing American forces. He wrote that the Americans fought differently than the British or the Russians, explaining that they brought the firepower of a machine gun nest into every house and every corner. Their automatic weapons, he noted, never stopped firing. This soldier had just survived his third encounter with American assault troops carrying weapons that completely defied German tactical doctrine. The Thompson Submachine Gun, that distinctive weapon with its devastating rate of fire, had transformed close-quarters combat in ways the Wehrmacht had never anticipated. German training emphasized marksmanship, fire discipline, and strict ammunition conservation. The Americans, by contrast, seemed to spray bullets like water from a hose, advancing behind walls of automatic fire that made traditional defensive positions utterly untenable. The 1st Battalion of the 143rd Infantry Regiment had just taken San Pietro after 6 days of brutal house-to-house fighting. Of the 280 German defenders, only 46 survived to be captured. The rest learned what happened when American industrial capacity met German doctrine in the confined spaces of an Italian mountain village. A combination that fundamentally challenged everything the German soldiers believed about infantry combat. What the German forces were encountering across Italy and would soon face in Normandy was not just superior firepower, but a complete philosophical revolution in small unit tactics, all enabled by an industrial capacity that could manufacture complex automatic weapons in unprecedented quantities. The German military establishment had dismissed the Thompson submachine gun when they first encountered reports of it in the 1920s. At a cost equivalent to over $3,000 per unit in 1921, the German observers concluded that the weapon was an expensive curiosity, suited only for gangsters and police work, and impractical for military use due to its high cost and excessive ammunition consumption. They concluded that no army could equip regular infantry with such a weapon. This assessment would prove catastrophically wrong. By 1943, American factories like Auto Ordnance and Savage Arms had transformed John T. Thompson's complex design into a mass production achievement. Production of the simplified M1 and M1A1 variants ultimately totaled nearly 1.4 million units by the war's end. Where German doctrine called for just 1 or 2 submachine guns per squad, American forces were fielding them at the company level in numbers that stunned their opponents. German infantry schools maintained that the submachine gun was a specialist weapon for paratroopers, asserting that the standard rifle was necessary for accurate, disciplined fire. This doctrine, based on the economics of a resource-limited Germany, left their infantry tactically and psychologically unprepared for the storm of automatic fire they were about to face. The first major encounters between Thompson-equipped American units and German forces occurred during Operation Torch in North Africa in November 1942. At the Kasserine Pass in early 1943, a German officer from the 10th Panzer Division reported that while they initially drove the Americans back, the volume of automatic fire once the Americans established defensive positions was unlike anything they had experienced on the Eastern Front. The impression, he noted, was that every second American soldier possessed an automatic pistol. The Thompson's psychological impact often exceeded its tactical effect in these early encounters. German soldiers, trained to count rounds and estimate enemy supply, simply could not comprehend the American willingness to expend thousands of rounds in brief firefights. A single American platoon might fire more ammunition in a 5-minute engagement than a German company was allocated for a day of combat. German prisoners captured in Tunisia consistently reported their shock to interrogators. They had been taught that automatic weapons were support tools, used sparingly. The Americans, by contrast, used them as primary weapons, firing entire magazines to suppress positions before the Germans could even return aimed shots. The Italian campaign, from 1943 to 1945, became the Thompsons' proving ground. The mountainous terrain and fortified positions of the Gustav Line should have favored German defenders, who typically required attackers to hold a 3-to-1 numerical advantage. The Thompson changed this calculation. At the Rapido River crossing in January 1944, German defenders reported that American assault troops came across the water firing continuously. Not aimed shots, but streams of bullets that made it impossible to man defensive positions. The Germans had the devastating MG-42 machine gun, but only one per squad. The Americans concentrated automatic weapons at every critical point. The four battles of Monte Cassino provided a complete education in American firepower doctrine. Elite German paratroopers reported that Americans attacked the surrounding heights with a consistent method they couldn't counter. Advancing behind curtains of automatic fire, soldiers firing bursts as they moved, targeting every window and door, whether occupied or not. The Thompson's effectiveness in the rubble of Cassino demonstrated its superiority in urban combat. Its .45 ACP round, while having limited range, possessed devastating stopping power at close quarters. The M1A1's rate of fire, up to 700 rounds per minute, created a wall of lead at the typical engagement ranges of under 50 yards, where 90% of all infantry engagements occurred. The Anzio landings further demonstrated the American capacity to sustain firepower-intensive tactics. The beachhead became a laboratory for automatic weapons tactics, with U.S. and Commonwealth forces extensively employing Thompsons in the static fighting. One German soldier from the Hermann Göring Division, describing a night attack in February 1944, reported that when American positions opened fire, the effect was devastating. Not the measured bursts of machine guns, but multiple individual automatic weapons firing simultaneously. Half the company was lost in under 2 minutes. When American forces landed in Normandy on June 6, 1944, German defenders immediately encountered Thompson-equipped assault troops. Airborne divisions and Rangers carried them specifically for bunker and house-clearing operations. Veterans of Omaha Beach noted that once the Americans reached the seawall and began close combat, the dynamics changed completely. The short, automatic weapons allowed Americans to run and fire simultaneously, creating an overwhelming volume of violence rather than relying on precision. The dense, hedgerow country of Normandy, the bocage, initially favored the German defenders, but the Thompson transformed these confined battles. American doctrine called for marching fire, advancing while firing continuously to suppress enemy positions, a tactic impossible to match with bolt-action rifles. German field hospitals quickly filled with casualties from Thompson wounds. The core reason for the Thompson's impact lay in its technical specifications combined with American industry. The M1A1 fired at up to 700 rounds per minute using powerful .45 caliber ammunition with a capacity of 20 or 30 rounds per magazine. This contrasted sharply with the standard German Kar-98K rifle, which was a bolt-action weapon with a 5-round magazine and a rate of fire of about 15 rounds per minute. While the German rifle was superior in range and accuracy, these advantages meant nothing in the close quarters fighting of Italy and Normandy. Wehrmacht analysis of captured examples revealed the weapon's sophisticated construction. The original Thompson contained over 100 precision-machined parts, manufacturing requirements that only American industrial capacity could sustain. German officers found American logistics the most incomprehensible aspect. The Thompson consumed ammunition at rates that would have exhausted German supply systems within hours. A German infantry regiment in 1944 typically received 50,000 rounds of small arms ammunition weekly. American forces equipped with Thompsons could expend that same amount in a single day of heavy combat. The United States produced 47 billion rounds of small arms ammunition during the war. German logistics officers calculated that each Thompson burst consumed ammunition worth more than a German soldier's daily pay, yet Americans fired thousands of bursts daily without concern. Germans, meanwhile, counted every cartridge. This disparity in resources made different tactics not just possible, but strategically necessary. The Thompson's distinctive, deep, percussive sound became a psychological weapon. German veterans reported being able to identify American units by the sound of the rapid hammering .45 caliber fire alone. The weapon's aesthetic, particularly the original drum magazine, added to its psychological impact, recalling the gangster movies German propaganda had mocked, but frontline soldiers now feared. American squad organization, while not equipping every soldier with a Thompson, used a flexible distribution system. Company headquarters maintained pools of weapons, including Thompsons, for assignment to scouts, point men, and troops conducting house-clearing operations or night patrols. This meant German forces never knew exactly where to expect concentrated automatic fire. The battles for cities like Aachen demonstrated the dominance in urban combat. American tactics involved aggressive penetration into built-up areas, with troops often entering buildings through walls or ceilings, preceded by continuous bursts of automatic fire through walls and doorways. German defenders, trained to wait for clear targets, found themselves suppressed by sheer volume of fire before they could even begin an engagement. Even the dense, wooded terrain of the Hurtgen forest, which should have favored long-range German rifles, saw the Thompson adapted. American forces used them to spray treetop level, detonating German wooden-handled grenades and mines placed in branches. The Thompson's heavy .45 caliber bullets proved superior at smashing through undergrowth that deflected smaller projectiles. During the Battle for the Bulge, the Thompson proved decisive in defensive operations, particularly in the defense of Bastogn's perimeter. Surrounded and outnumbered paratroopers provided final protective fires with Thompsons, meeting concentrated automatic fire from individual soldiers, not just crew-served weapons. German tank spearheads quickly encountered Thompson-equipped infantry who could infiltrate to close quarters, where the tank's advantages were negated by the volume of fire preventing German infantry support. The final Rhine crossings in March 1945 saw engineers and assault troops carrying Thompsons almost exclusively, laying down suppressive fire that German observers described as unprecedented in intensity. The shock of the Thompson was ultimately a symbol of the immense industrial disparity. Each Thompson required precision machining and quality steel, requirements that would have crippled German production. American factories produced nearly 1.4 million Thompson variants, while simultaneously manufacturing hundreds of thousands of aircraft and tanks and billions of rounds of ammunition. German small arms production for all submachine gun types combined barely exceeded 1.4 million units. This industrial gulf meant that even when German commanders understood American tactics, they simply could not replicate them. The shock went beyond the tactical to the existential. German soldiers, raised in a military tradition emphasizing skill and marksmanship, found these virtues irrelevant against American industrial output. They realized they had challenged the world's greatest industrial power with wholly insufficient resources. The Thompson, mass-produced yet complex, expensive yet expendable, perfectly symbolized American warfare. Each burst of .45 caliber fire reminded them that wars were won not by warrior spirit or tactical brilliance, but by factory output and material abundance. The Thompson had done more than wound bodies. It had shattered illusions. German veterans would carry memories of its distinctive sound for decades, a permanent reminder of the moment they learned that courage and skill meant nothing against the unlimited firepower of the arsenal of democracy. The German soldiers had brought rifles to an industrial war. The Thompson Submachine Gun was America's answer.